I'm John Walker. Just a regular guy living a regular life, at least, I thought I was. Everything shattered one autumn night when I uncovered the truth. My wife, Emily, had been unfaithful. And from that moment, everything changed. Just yesterday, things seemed perfect. Or so I believed. Emily and I had a solid marriage, 2 amazing kids, Jack and Lucy. Life was good. But then, Emily started working late nights at her marketing job. At first, I thought nothing of it. I trusted her. Love does that to you, right? It makes you blind to the things that might be there, things you don't want to see. But soon, the signs couldn't be ignored. It started with strange messages on her phone. Late nights, she'd stay at the office. She'd meet up with old friends, but these weren't one-time occasions. They kept happening. And then there were the phone calls, always hanging up the moment I walked into the room. I told myself it was nothing, maybe just my mind playing tricks. But deep down, something didn't feel right. I wasn't the type to make accusations without proof, so I stayed quiet for a while. I thought I was just being paranoid. But then, one day, I made a mistake. While she was in the shower, I opened her laptop to check a work email. As I scrolled, an alert popped up. I saw it immediately, an email from Alex Monroe, a coworker of hers. Someone I'd heard about more than I cared to. The message was simple, but it hit me like a punch in the gut. Baby, we'll meet tonight. Don't let anyone know. That was it. The proof I'd been avoiding. My wife, my Emily, had betrayed me. I sat there, staring at the screen, struggling to breathe. The world seemed to tilt around me. My hands shook as I closed the laptop. Emily came out of the bathroom, oblivious. I was no longer sure how to even look at her. What's going on? She asked, voice soft. I couldn't speak. All I could do was stare at her. My mind raced. My heart felt like it was breaking all at once. Don't play games, Emily. You and Alex, right? I asked, my voice shaking with anger and pain. She froze. Panic flashed across her face. She didn't speak. She just stood there, quiet. Why? I demanded, my voice rising, sharper now. Why him? Why this? We have a family. We have kids. Why would you do this? She collapsed onto the bed, hands cradling her face, unable to look at me. He's just a friend. Just a coworker, John. You have to believe me. I couldn't do it anymore. Not this time. The lies were too much. Don't lie to me, Emily. I know everything. You think I'm stupid? How many times did you meet him? Where do you go on those nights? Who are you really seeing? I yelled, frustration spilling out in a torrent of hurt. She cried, but it didn't matter. The tears didn't fix what she'd done. I'm sorry. I don't know why I did this. He's just a friend. And then came the line that broke me. Then you couldn't control yourself? Was that the excuse? She couldn't control herself. I wanted to scream, to lash out at the unfairness of it all. I wanted to ask, why not me? But I didn't. I turned away, the silence in the room swallowing me whole. A part of me, deep down, wanted to forgive her. After all, she was still the woman I had loved, the mother of my children. But the other part, the part that was torn apart inside, knew that nothing would ever be the same. I couldn't just pretend anymore. If you ever see him again, I won't forgive you. He'll never step foot in this house again, I said, my voice cold, unyielding. She nodded, eyes brimming with regret, but it didn't matter. The damage was done. I didn't know what to do next. I didn't know if I could stay. She was still their mother. But I couldn't keep living in this lie. I had to confront the truth of what was happening, to make it clear that I wouldn't be disrespected. Looking at Emily, my heart ached. All the promises, the years of memories, they all seemed meaningless now. We couldn't go back to what we were. We couldn't keep pretending. Emily, in her brokenness, sat there, trying to calm herself, as if the storm was over. But it wasn't. You don't understand, John. I don't know why this happened, she whispered, eyes red, voice trembling. I couldn't listen to her anymore. There were no more excuses, no more lies. I needed answers. Real ones. So you don't know, huh? I said, sarcasm heavy in my voice. Tell me, Emily, when this life no longer feels real, when everything falls apart, what will you do? Do you still love me, or are you just trapped in a marriage you don't want anymore? My words cut deep, and I saw it, the pain, the recognition of what she'd lost. But it didn't matter. The rage inside me had turned into something cold, something final. I was no longer the man who would tolerate being lied to. She stayed silent, her face buried in her hands, and I stood there, feeling like a part of me was lost forever. And then, the anger gave way to something else, something I couldn't ignore. I couldn't just sit in this silence. I couldn't let her keep living in this lie. Are you going on that business trip with Alex? I asked again. My voice was calm now, distant. Are you going to keep lying and pretend this doesn't have consequences? Emily turned to me, her face confused, but I wasn't going to let her play the victim anymore. Don't try to act like you're innocent. Don't make me out to be the fool, Emily. In her eyes, I saw something. It wasn't regret, it wasn't an apology. It was fear. She was afraid, but not of me, she was afraid of something she wasn't brave enough to face. As for me, I was beyond searching for forgiveness. The decision had already been made, and it wouldn't change. This is the last time you can hurt me, Emily, the last time. If you walk away from this relationship, don't think you'll ever come back. I won't let you be a bad example for our kids. She stood there, eyes filled with unshed tears, but said nothing. There was nothing left to say. Everything was clear now. In that moment, I knew, Emily was no longer the woman I had loved. She had changed, and so had I. I didn't know what I'd do next, but I knew I couldn't ignore this. I couldn't pretend anymore. The storm inside me was only growing stronger. Hatred wasn't what I wanted, but at times like this, there was no other emotion that could match the fury I felt. I wasn't going to let this slide. Not this time. The nights that followed, sleep evaded me. I couldn't stop thinking about Alex, about everything that had transpired between them. Their relationship might not have lasted long, but Emily's betrayal was deep enough to strip away every ounce of respect I had for her. I couldn't keep living this false life. I couldn't keep pretending we were a family. The pain flared up, but I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to hurt her more than she'd already hurt me. What I wanted was for her to understand. No one gets to hurt me without facing the consequences. But I wasn't going to act out of impulse. I needed a plan, a way to make her, and Alex, understand the cost of their actions. Emily could keep seeing him, keep playing this game, but I wasn't going to let her live in this lie anymore. I would make sure she understood the true consequences of her betrayal. I was ready. My life, and my heart, were no longer the same. Each day felt like it was dragging on, like I was living in a film where I was the protagonist of my own misery. Every decision, every step, became harder. I wasn't the man who once loved and protected his family. I had become someone else, someone who had been betrayed, and now, I needed to reclaim the respect I'd lost. The plan began to take shape in my mind. This wasn't blind revenge. It was about making them pay, making Emily and Alex face the weight of what they had done. I didn't want to be the angry, irrational man, but I wanted everyone to know the truth. I wanted Emily to feel the shame of what she'd done to our family. It all began one evening when Emily received an invitation to a major event hosted by her company. This was the moment I had been waiting for. She had no idea that I had been tracking her every move. I knew she would go with Alex. I knew this would be the opportunity to execute my plan. The event was being held at an upscale hotel in the city center. The atmosphere was elegant, filled with mingling guests, their eyes darting around, curious and oblivious to the undercurrent of tension. And then Emily appeared, stunning, in a striking red evening gown, walking confidently beside Alex, who never left her side. Under the soft glow of the chandeliers, they entered the grand hall, hand in hand, as if they had nothing to hide. I stood in a shadowed corner, my eyes locked on them, every glance, every gesture, felt like a knife cutting into my chest. I could see the smugness in Alex's eyes. He was proud, almost arrogant. But Emily was different. She glanced around nervously, her confidence faltering. She knew this could fall apart at any moment, but she didn't know I had already planned every detail. When they headed toward the bar, I moved quickly, approaching some of Alex's colleagues, people I knew I could persuade. I wasn't planning on making a scene, not yet. But I was going to make Emily bow her head before everyone. I had prepared a performance they would never forget. As they made their way toward the bar, I positioned myself near the edge of the crowd. I didn't confront her directly, I simply watched, pretending I didn't recognize her. A few seconds later, I saw Alex turn, his gaze locking onto me. Recognition flashed across his face, but I just smiled, coldly, without emotion. There was a shift in the room, a tension, and Alex clearly didn't want to draw attention to himself. Things became even more tense when Emily excused herself to head to the restroom. I saw my chance. I followed her, slipping through the hallway where no one was paying attention. The quiet of the hallway felt deafening. I could hear my own breathing. Emily's breathing grew heavier, faster. She turned to face me, her expression a mix of fear and confusion. "John, what are you doing?" Her voice was trembling, hoarse. I stood a few paces away, my gaze unwavering. "You think you can keep lying to me, Emily?" My voice was as cold as steel, devoid of any feeling. "I know everything now, and now, you will pay." She took a step back, panic flashing in her eyes. "You can't do this. You can't embarrass me like this. I still love you, but I also love Alex. I can't come back to you." "Come back? No, there's nothing left to come back to," I replied, my words like a blade slicing through the air. "I can't forgive someone like you, and don't expect to keep your dignity when I expose everything you've done with Alex," I said, my voice low, but each word packed with finality. Emily shook uncontrollably. The sight of fear in her eyes fueled something inside me. A sense of triumph surged, but it wasn't enough. I didn't just want Emily humiliated. I wanted Alex to feel the weight of his actions too. I turned toward the party room, the sound of laughter and chatter still echoing in the background. Emily had no idea that the plan I had set in motion was about to unfold. As I walked to the center of the hall, I made eye contact with a few of Alex's colleagues. They recognized me, and one approached, suspicion flickering in his eyes. I only needed a nod from him, and I knew everything would shift in an instant. He led Alex toward me. I stood still, my gaze unwavering. Then, I spoke slowly. "Alex, I think it's time you left my, and Emily's, life, and I think everyone here deserves to know about your relationship." The room fell into an uncomfortable silence. All eyes turned toward me, then to Alex, and finally to Emily. I didn't take pleasure in their discomfort, but I felt a strange relief wash over me. This was the reckoning they had earned. Emily dropped her head, and in that moment, I knew she would never look at me the same way again. She had destroyed everything we had. For me, it was as though I had been freed. The room held its breath. The air was thick with tension as Emily and Alex stood frozen, awkward and ashamed. My eyes never left them. Every step they took felt like an irreversible collapse. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to create chaos. I wanted everyone to see the truth. To see the consequences of betrayal. Alex, the man I had once seen as nothing more than a colleague, now stood before everyone as a fraud. I wasn't just exposing him, I was making him feel the pain I had endured. But I wasn't done yet. This wasn't about revenge. This was about putting an end to everything. Emily didn't say a word. She stood there, her face flushed with humiliation, her eyes welling with tears. She couldn't believe it, couldn't believe that everything had come to light. My words were like a slap to her face. I didn't take satisfaction in hurting her, but there was no other choice. She had done the same to me, and now the truth was exposed. A moment later, I saw panic flare in Emily's eyes. She turned to Alex, her gaze pleading, as if silently begging him to help. But Alex just shook his head. His confidence had evaporated. He no longer had the courage to protect her. I didn't care anymore. They weren't part of my world now. They had forfeited my trust. I turned away, walking out of the room without another glance. Let the curious eyes watch. Let the whispers fill the air. The truth had already been laid bare. A few days passed, and I knew, without a doubt, that I wouldn't return to Emily, not no matter how many times she begged or regretted. The wounds hadn't healed, they never would. There were moments I wanted to forgive, but no. I couldn't live with someone who didn't respect me. I needed to move on. I needed to find myself again, without her. Emily tried to call. Every day, she sent messages and emails, pleading for forgiveness. I didn't respond. She had done enough. What I needed was space to heal and regain the dignity I'd lost. But I knew I couldn't just ignore what had happened. I needed to face my decision clearly. Our children, Jack and Lucy, began to sense the change. One day, Jack, my 7-year-old son, asked a question that made my heart ache. "Dad, Mom won't come back, will she?" I wasn't prepared for it. I had never imagined that my son would have to face the reality of our broken family. I explained gently that Mom and Dad had problems, things we couldn't fix together. I didn't want him to bear the weight of this, but I couldn't keep the truth hidden. And I knew that no matter what, our family would never be the same again. Time couldn't be reversed. A week later, I agreed to meet Emily one last time. Not for reconciliation, there was no hope for that anymore. But because I needed closure, a final conversation to put everything to rest. We met at a small cafe, a place we once frequented when we were happy, before everything fell apart. It all felt distant now, like a memory that no longer belonged to either of us, but I wanted it to be our final goodbye. "I can't forgive you," I said, my voice cracking, no longer cold but full of sorrow. "You betrayed me, and not just me, you betrayed yourself too." Emily was silent, her lips trembling. She wanted an explanation, but there was no explanation left to give. There were no words that could undo the damage. "I don't want to live a life filled with lies," I continued. "I need a new life, one where I can respect myself again." "I understand," Emily replied, her voice distant, as though she no longer recognized herself. "You need to move on. I just hope that one day, you'll understand why I did this." We sat there in silence. I knew Emily would never truly grasp the depth of the pain she had caused. But I didn't need her to understand anymore. The words, the tears, they were too little, too late. And so, I decided to start over. Not because I could ever forget what she did, but because I deserved peace. I couldn't stay in a broken marriage. I couldn't remain with someone I no longer trusted. I moved into a small apartment near work, a quiet place, a fresh start where I could finally find peace. I focused on my work, on my children, on myself. And I met Lena, a woman who didn't fix me, but helped me heal. In the end, I learned that every betrayal has its price. But the highest price we pay is when we let our self-respect be shattered. As I slowly pieced my life back together, I understood, forgiveness isn't always the right path. Sometimes, to move forward, we need to know when to let go. Emily made her choice. And I made mine. What mattered most now was that I would never lose myself again.